guest from the South of California, Catherine Cooley.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody. It's really lovely to be here enjoying this morning with you. I will share my screen and we will get rolling. I'm imagining that when you read this, there was a little voice saying, "My enemy images? What do you mean, Catherine?" And my hope today in our time together is to give you a glimpse of what I consider a magical world of compassionate relating, where you're continually warmed by empathy and have reliable clarity about how to harmoniously meet your needs and those of your close people, which is basically what life is about, is as human beings, is meeting our human needs. And so I'm not saying that it's always feeling warm and lovely with people, yet you will be amazed at the shift your connections can make. And so we're going to look at what my work is based on: nonviolent and compassionate communication. And because I'm in presenter view here, I can't see many of you. But I'm curious if anyone, how many people have ever heard of NVC? It is used around the world now. Many people know about it. So you can put it in the chat if you're familiar with it. And then we're going to harvest the wisdom that's actually contained in our judgments, in those enemy images. And we're going to look at why, some benefits, some costs of carrying enemy images, and then some benefits of transforming them. Sorry, I seem to have a frog launched in my throat. I think it'll go away. Okay. And then we'll do a practice together to transform the enemy images. A little bit about me, as was already mentioned: communication and conflict coach, Center for Nonviolent Communication certified trainer. There's about 800 of us, I think, now in the world. And mediator, speaker. I facilitate restorative justice processes, usually like in spiritual communities. I've been doing that. And also, what's really exciting to me is a movement called conscious business. So I work with families and also business teams, and I'm particularly excited about working with companies and teams that are very purpose-driven and that are really focused on serving people in their organizations, their suppliers, their customers, rather than just the business traditional investors and C-suite executives. There's a movement now, and the movement is fueled by the fact that these companies that care about people, planet, also make more profit and are more sustainable. So and by the way, it was fun to hear all of you talking about San Francisco, and your love of your city is so clear. And I get to be there next week at the Wisdom 2.0 conference, which is not technically a part of the conscious business movement, or conscious capitalism, as it's called, which was launched pretty much by John Mackey, founder of Whole Foods, over 10 years ago when he wrote that book, Conscious Capitalism. But Wisdom 2.0 was started in the tech Silicon Valley community. It's about 15 years old now, but it to bring mindfulness and also some spiritual values into business. So there's beautiful crossover in both of those movements. So yes, what is this NVC? Developed 40 years ago by a psychologist named Marshall Rosenberg. And it's a way of speaking, listening, and thinking from the heart in order to effectively meet our needs, or as Rosenberg loved to say, make life more wonderful. And so we're just going to kind of go quickly through some principles that'll give you a feeling for this consciousness. So the NVC itself has just 4 steps, which is probably why people really like it. It's simple, although it's not that easy to rewire ourselves to actually think and speak with this consciousness, right? So I like to see the 4 steps is like the bones of NVC. And then now we're going to look at some of the soul of NVC, some of these principles. So Rosenberg realized something really important, like everything we're running around doing and talking about and thinking about is in service of our human needs. And you'll see that this makes a difference knowing this. So human beings are naturally interdependent, right? Our well-being, yours and mine, is inextricably interconnected. And even when the resources might be very limited, which is many of the times on this planet, actually, overall, we are ahead of the game when we cooperate with each other to meet our needs. And so the intention of a conversation using NVC is to connect authentically and compassionately with what's alive in each other. And when we say what's alive in someone at any moment, what we mean is what this person is feeling inside about how their needs are being met or not being met. And that was one of Rosenberg's big discoveries, this link between how we feel and what we need. And it has basically a simple, there's a simple, almost binary thing going on inside of us. Our painful feelings are a compass pointing us to the fact that some important needs are not met. And so our painful feelings like sadness, rage, fear, right? And then our pleasant feelings when we're feeling excited or just like warm and happy inside, those are pointing us to the fact, I call them the green flag feelings. Green flags waving at me going, wow, more of this, please. Some important needs are being met here. And then of course, the painful ones are the red flags going, uh-oh, wait, let's take a look. What's going on? And so needs refers to universal human needs. We all have them. It doesn't matter whether we live here, where we live, our gender, our age, whether we're girls or women. It's really about what is it required to be healthy and happy here on planet Earth as people? And so a little way of understanding this concept with each other as a group is take a moment right now and write down in the chat a couple like top qualities that are really important to you to have in relationships. And I'll have to find my chat so I can see what you say here. Couple qualities that you like to have in your close relationships. Long-lasting, humor, respect, honesty, candor. Yeah. Anyone else? Honesty, yes. That's one that comes up probably most frequently. And time with that person, availability, right? And authenticity, trust, humor, reliability, interesting diversity of thought. Yeah, so there's like growth and stimulation there with that. Ability to listen, huge for people. And sense of humor and kindness. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. And here's and you'll find a lot of needs list around on the internet, but here's like one of them and you can kind of categorize them. It makes it a little easier to think about. You'll notice some of the things that were named in that list, right? Security, to be safe, the obvious physical ones, and efficacy, power, movement, Autonomy, so important, especially like that teenager asking for the car, right? It's all about autonomy. And by the way, if the teenager asks for the car, it will help. It helps with our requests for us to center our needs. I would love to use the car tonight. It would meet my needs for fun and freedom. Now, that might actually scare the parent, but anyway, you get the point. When we make our requests to people with this awareness of our needs, we want to help each other meet our needs. There's something even in the parent that's worried about the teen. There's something that's going to inspire them. Oh yeah, there's something inside that's going to go, oh yeah, freedom and fun. So, and community, we are social animals. We probably need this more than anything. And someone named it in the little needs list that we made in the chat today: kindness, respect. I think both of those were probably named. Definitely so important. Care is huge for us. We need it. And then the part about like someone had mentioned like people who like thoughtful interactions, right? That's like around growth and meaning in life. And this is sometimes looked at kind of like a little bit of more of the like spiritual elements of us. It's hugely important to us that our lives mean something. That's why we love to volunteer. That's why we love to contribute. It fills us with meaning. So yeah, so now let's go back to what we're really here to look at today and to play with today, which is these judgments that we carry. And what Rosenberg realized is we have a lot of ways of thinking and being that's very disconnecting, and our judgments are one of them, right? So NVC is about bringing us into a thinking and a speaking that's connecting again, because we have these habits, right? And we have a couple options. We can just like steamroll ahead in our judgmental, habitual ways, or we can pause, and it does take some pause, by the way. It's one of the most important tools I teach. Pause and pursue an awareness of feelings and needs. And even this is a little bit of slippery slope. It's easy to, like, if I have a judgment, to make that wrong, right? And so now I'm back in that kind of judgmental, good, bad, right, wrong thinking. But the main thing to know and to remember is that judgments hold inside them a path to discovering our needs. So enemy images are basically like these unchecked, repetitive negative judgments. We probably can, most of us, find at least one relationship where that occurs more often than we'd like, or definitely than we need. In my example, I have an older brother, and we care for my mom together. I have two brothers that do that. My older brother's in charge of everything. And it's been a wonderful opportunity for me in my NVC practice to develop warmth of connection with him, because we go about things so differently, right? And at some points it had this intensity had accumulated, and it wasn't pretty. So there's cost here, right? There's big cost, as she's reminding us here. They really negatively impact how we feel and act. They dehumanize and tend to create exactly what we don't want. They rarely lead to getting what we do want. And some people, in what we learn in the peace movement, is this piece about dehumanizing. That is actually how they get soldiers to shoot at people, because we actually don't really want to do that. They did studies, I guess, after World War I and found so many of the soldiers weren't shooting those guns. They dehumanize. You've got to dehumanize the enemy. You've got to create enemy images of how bad these people are before people are willing, most people are willing to kill them. So they often grow in intensity over time. And they bring out what most of us would consider the worst in us. So reasons to transform. Life feels better, self-esteem, we like ourselves better. Freedom, connection, and possibility. Releasing people from my static judgment boxes means I'm no longer limiting myself to relating to them, thinking about my brother, from that place of judgment. It rehumanizes them for me and opens up new possibilities for relating. And by the way, these kind of transformations need to happen. I see it as a spiral, like we do them and then they kind of roll back again and we're back there, and then we do it again, and slowly over time we can shift these things. So I want to make sure you have some time for to dive in, but I want to give a couple scenarios so we can get to this place where we identify something like I find myself thinking that a coworker is inconsiderate, right? And again, I might slip into actually making myself wrong about that. Hopefully not. So my judgments are expressing my needs in a disconnecting way, right? If I were actually to tell her, I think you're inconsiderate, she's going to either attack me back or distance herself, right? Very disconnecting. But with NVC, I can translate it. So now in my own mind, I think about that inconsiderate and I go, oh, I guess that means I'm really caring about and I'm wanting and valuing, you can substitute value for needs, more consideration or care. And so that gets me in touch with something that's going to be helpful as I relate to her. Now I'm aware again, just like the teenager was aware of his or her needs for freedom and fun, and help the parent become aware of that and autonomy. Now I can help her become aware that I'm really wanting for care and consideration. And I don't know if you've heard it in my voice as I say that, but there's a vulnerability in our needs, right? But there's also a softness and a warmth as we imagine ourselves getting them met. And there's new possibility, way more new possibility than me holding inconsiderate. But there's even more, because what we've learned to do in our NVC community is let the judgments roll. So not only not make them wrong, but recognize there's important stuff in these ugly judgments of mine, right? It's called enjoying the judgment show. And so now I go back and I let it rip. Yeah, she's inconsiderate. She's also a big liar, and she's a user. She uses people. I now have inconsiderate, liar, and user to help me find out more about my needs. I've got a much broader sense. So now, as before, I got the consideration and care, and now, yeah, I'm needing more trust. Liar is pointing me to, I need more trust here. And user, I feel like I need to take care of myself in this relationship, and that sometimes there's not the mutuality that I'm really wanting and that I hope is possible. So I can learn to watch my judgments as preliminary information that I keep quiet in my head, by the way. This information is just for me, right? The preliminary judgmental part. And it's not the truth. The truth is that I'm a vulnerable human being with needs. And now I've refined my understanding in this relationship or in this conversation about what these needs are. So hopefully you're getting a sense. There's a lot of clarity and power in here. And if you want to go to, I don't think I can, oh yeah, let's see. I can copy it here and put it in the chat for you. It'll be helpful in the process that we're going to do, which is going to be faster than what I'd like. But there it is in the chat. You can get your needs list. Oops, where'd it go? Your needs list and feelings list, and also Heart Talk, which is a beautiful, very handy 2-page summary of NVC, which I recommend copying, putting in a plastic sleeve, and putting it on your fridge. Okay. Enemy image release process. So take a moment. And by the way, if you do decide to pull your feelings and needs lists, they can be helpful in this, but you can also, I think you already have enough sense of what your needs are now. And probably have a sense of just like, you can just go with basic feelings like mad, sad, glad kind of feelings to do this. So first, find the person. Find your older brother or whoever that is for you, where you may have been carrying around some judgments for a while that are actually bogging you down and limiting how you interact with this person and making it stressful. Okay. And this starts with awareness, right? That you realize, oh yeah, I've got these negative judgments rolling. And now you're realizing, oh, now that doesn't mean I'm bad or wrong. No, that means I am experiencing unmet needs in this relationship. And maybe I haven't articulated them as well as I could have. Maybe I haven't been able to inspire this person to help me meet my needs. And by the way, the longer your enemy image has run on this person, the harder it is to now inspire them to help you meet your needs. It's a kind of a catch-22. And now go to step 2. Hopefully everyone's found one. For most people, it's not hard. Now you're going to have, there's like 2 parts to this self-empathy. And by the way, empathy, which a lot of people really don't know what it is, NVC gives this wonderful 2-step process. Empathy is understanding what's alive in someone, understanding their world, which is how are they feeling about their needs, right? So now you're doing that for yourself with care and kindness. You're thinking, well, how do I feel when I'm carrying this image? My brother is controlling. My brother is selfish. What's going on in here? How do I feel? Well, I feel stressed. I feel anxious, right? A little fearful. What need of mine is not met when I hold this judgment? So I'm going to pause and have you check in and see what that is for you. And you're welcome in any of these steps to share in the chat. It really helps the group. What is that feeling in step 2A for you? What do you feel when you're running the judgment on your friend or family member or coworker? And you might realize there's some unmet needs there, right? Maybe your needs for connection or even self-connection. Like when I feel that fear and anxiety, I'm not even self-connected anymore. Maybe those are not met. Yeah, thank you. Caring, yeah. 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 Oh, Janice, that's what is happening in Gaza. Absolutely. That is what is happening in Gaza. Yeah. And that was from before, I see. Let me pull up this chat. The need to be her. Yeah. Oh, and Janice shares, yeah, that's exactly my brother. What comes up for me is that he's not acknowledging my ideas and needs, the need to be heard. Yes. Yeah. And that's part B. Part B is to really look at how I feel when the person does the behavior. So if my brother is controlling how I'm caring for my mom or trying to and I'm starting to feel irritated and anxious. What are my unmet needs, right? Yeah. My unmet needs for partnership, for autonomy, for respect. So this is the self-empathy. This is me getting in touch with me, right? So yes, Patricia shares, I feel frustrated and lose focus. Yes, we do not function very well. Absolutely. And Kathy, for the first time in more than a decade, America has fallen out of the top 20 happiest countries, according to Gallup. Yeah. The study pulls back the curtain on happiness worldwide and explains why happiness matters to our well-being. It absolutely does. Neurologically, spiritually, like in our bodies, like everything, right? Yes. So step 3 now, and this is a fabulous piece of this. Now in our minds and our hearts, we shift the empathy focus to the other. I don't if you remember, one of the principles that we learned that we hold in NVC is everything my brother ever does is in service of his needs. Now, most people who don't have this kind of training, that all happens under the radar, unconsciously, right? We don't usually back engineer and say, oh, I just yelled at my sister to meet my needs for care and contribution to my mother's care. That is not how it works. That's in fact what he may have been doing, but we want to get in his mind and heart as best we can. And that is where I go when I do that with him. I really get, he has profound care and love for my mom. That's really what he's striving for. And when I get there again, something in me relaxes, even though I still don't agree with him or his strategies. We have really different ones, but I'm holding him differently now as a human being and as a brother, right? Even more importantly. Yeah. So yeah, happy to read any more that might be coming up in the chat for you. Again, think about your person, and I know we're almost at time. Think about your person. What needs are motivating their conduct, maybe? And you'll notice that last comment, when you sense a resonance with your guesses, you're likely to feel a shift in your feelings. And I know even, just it can be this amazing momentary thing when I think about his needs, when I think he's trying to contribute the way he does, like, I can shift and I can get a sense, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's part of this world. And then what we do when we connect with the person at some point is we can offer these empathy guesses. I can offer to him, I think you said that to me, probably because you're really in this moment, like very committed that she get X, Y, and Z specific kind of care. Is that right? So that's what that after I do this in my mind, then I can do it with him. And then it's a dialogue to actually see what is important to him. What are these needs? So now in the last minute that we have, I just invite you to think about, just like name 3 quick impacts. And I'd love it if anyone wants to put it in the chat. Oh, and thank you, Patricia. He wasn't doing it to feel superior, or he was doing it to feel superior.
He was. It was a typo. Was.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Indispensable, which is related to the need to matter and the need for contribution. Yeah. Thank you. And Susan, those who seek or pursue happiness focus on the often elusive pursuit. Others are happy. Very Taoist. Yes, I agree. So yeah, so take a moment. What's going to be the impact on your life and especially on that relationship? From number 1 choice, keeping your enemy images, or number 2, what would be the impacts if you were to transform? Light-hearted openness. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah. And then we have a question, Janelle. Does this methodology approach work with looking at political leaders? A number of people are working in the political realm with exactly this tool. Oh yeah, and courage. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patricia's liking what you're saying there, Kathy. Yeah, she'll take more of that, please, right? Lighthearted openness and courage. Yeah. And how about negotiating? Absolutely, because in negotiating, what you most want clarity on is the interests of this person, which are really the needs, not so much the strategies, right? And in a skillful mediation, we separate those and we get clarity around the needs, and we help people to get clear about each other's needs. Dr. Rosenberg used to say he didn't care how long or thick the conflict was. 20 minutes after both parties could accurately articulate their own and the other's needs, you were moving towards solution. And I will say, in my mediation experience, you're not just we're moving towards any solution. You're moving towards a solution that's more heart connected, which means it is more generous, it is more creative, the people are more committed to it. It's amazing what can shift when the human heart gets engaged, when you take that long journey from here to here. I've heard it being called the longest journey, and I think there's some truth to that. And so, yeah, the translating judgments to longings is just a great reminder, like, yeah, my longing is acceptance. I call you narrow-minded. My longing is warmth. I call you cold. I yearn for meaning. I call you superficial. That's what this judgmental brain, comparison brain is doing. And we can now, as we know, harvest that into, oh yeah, I'm wanting acceptance, I'm wanting warmth, I'm wanting meaning. So I want to invite you, and I will see if I can capture this link or not, or just put it, oops. You can take a screenshot. That's another option. But it's basically, you can also go to peaceable.com, and there's buttons on there if you want a complimentary conversation with me. If you have a challenging conflict at work or at home or in community, and you'd like some help, or you kind of just want to hear what my approach would be, happy to meet with you. Would love to connect. And oh yeah, Susan says, love your phrase, green flag feelings. Yes, I'll have more of that, please. Thanks for that takeaway. Yeah, so important. And one of my favorite Marshall Rosenberg quotes, giving and receiving is the best game in town. Plus my add-on, when it is authentic and compassionate, which is what NBC is all about. So I really thank you for your presence, and I'm looking forward to our Q&A. I will stop my screen share so we can connect face to face, Zoom face to Zoom face. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Catherine. That is, as I said before you started, that these are things that we all need, particularly in today's world where our own personal needs often clash. And how do you deal with that? And that's very, very valuable. Thank you so much. So, Susan, you have your hand up first.
Well, this is going to be a little contrary.
Great.
Antonio, this is going Chicago, as you would expect. When you said Marshall Rosenberg, I know Marshall Rosenberg in 1972, and I went and, while you were talking, I looked him up and go, oh yes, this is the same Marshall Rosenberg. Now I figured out why he was brought into San Francisco Unified School District and by whom. And he did a session on conflict in the classroom. And I will never forget this as long as I live. He was trying to teach us that when some child is, and let's just call it obstreperous, that you dialogue with that child when you get to all the stuff that you talked about. And Susan Rowan a newish teacher raised her hand and said, so what do you do with the other 29 kids while you're dialoguing with one for 20 minutes? He didn't have an answer. So you really brought back my former career, and that I guess I was always someone who was raised to ask questions. And I thought his advice for what he was saying to teachers that had 29 terrible kids in a classroom, way off base. But I love that you pulled the nuggets. And anyway, thank you for this. You know, we all have people that aggravate us. And I think what you said is really good. But there's another thing to do. Sometimes we have to be around people. Developing what you said is really important, and what I call perfunctory politeness. The other thing is have nothing to do with them.
Oh, yes, yes. One, in other words, avoid them. And that is, you know, that's absolutely a conflict solution that makes the most sense energetically sometimes. It's really true. And back to the teachers, what I been there, what I would have offered is that, yes, in the moment, because this is very true in life. Life happens in real time, and we can't even drop in to our feeling bodies when we're moving quickly. Feeling takes slowing down. So there's almost no way. I mean, I don't know, maybe the Dalai Lama could do it. I don't know. But what we can do, what I have found, and that I think this could make a big difference over time, is that you go back, you do pause, promise to return. So you go back in time. So maybe you take one child and you say, when you were speaking out, or when you pulled her hair, I'm imagining you were so frustrated. And I'm guessing you were really wanting this. Right? So, and I think you'll find, because I know I have, when this is a genuine process of giving someone empathy, when it is genuine, people respond. First of all, they're shocked. I've had some jaw-dropping moments with this. Like one of my favorites is many years ago, a magazine salesman who, a teen, like an older teen at my door, who was very unhappy with the result of our conversation because I wasn't buying. And instead of like taking on his energy, I actually gave him empathy and appreciation. And I still remember him. We have kind of a long walkway out of the house. I remember him walking like 20 paces and turning around again. Like, as in, is she real? Was that real? And even Rosenberg himself, after he met with a gang, one of the gang members followed him out, and he was actually a little scared after the presentation. And he leaned in and he said, I just want to know, what did you do in there? What did you do to us in there? Right? So people can feel when this consciousness is applied, not just when the 4 steps are applied. The bones by themselves are actually irritating, but when the consciousness is there. Yeah, I think we have another couple questions. Yeah, Kathy.
We do. Yeah.
Yeah. Good morning. Thank you so much for this. And thank you for the courage it takes. Like 49% of the population, I was born between the years of 1946 and 1964, which are baby boomers. Wow. And as a baby boomer, much of my life was, the beatings will continue until the morale improves.
Yes.
I mean, not personally beating, but I mean, that's the content. It's like, don't go home, get tough, come back at it. So there was a very combative nature to what progress looked like. You take on the good fight, and so much masculine energy thrown towards victory as compared to relationship mutuality. And so in the great undoing of this, waking up in the middle, as Jane Fonda says, I thought I was so old at 35. And then, and now I realize that I'm much more youthful in the pause it takes. And I love the pause to promise, and also the freedom, connection, and possibility. So I just want to thank you for taking this on, because so many people would rather be victorious on a righteous white horse than they would to be in a heartfelt conversation of what can be possible. And so I don't know if there's a question as much as an applause and an opportunity to ask everybody who really has come from the same level of growth that, what if I were to do it differently? What if it just for a moment, if, I often pause and think, okay, what if I don't do what I always do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do if I don't do what I always do? And just, I don't know, I just wanted to thank you. I took copious notes, and I appreciate the opportunity that you've given me to go out there and just, lean in a little harder and love a little more. So thank you. Thank you.
Music to my ears and warmth in my heart. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah.
All right,
Janelle. Yeah.
Janelle, do you have a question? Unmute.
You're muted still. Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about one of our current political leaders. I think you'll all know who I'm talking about. I know a lot of people say the solution for dealing with the negative energy that they have when looking at him on television is they don't watch. They just turned off all political news. Now, personally, I think that that's probably a pretty good solution. Sometimes when we have relationships with people that aren't working out, just don't spend time with them. I have a friend who keeps wanting to invite me to lunch. I don't like her energy. I don't want to go in. I don't want to do it. I don't want to make it a better relationship. I just want to get out of that. And but with politics, because it's our government, it's how we live our lives. It influences. I don't think it's a viable solution to just turn off the television and not watch what's going on. I don't think that's a good way to go. But with this particular person, I don't think he wants empathy. I think he wants things. I think he wants power over people. And I don't want to encourage that. Not that I have a relationship with him on a personal level, but it's frustrating. I don't know how to make him into a good person and find out what he wants, because I think he's sick. I really do think he's sick psychologically.
Yes. There's a lot in that, Janelle. So I want to start with the piece about, let's not turn off the TV. This is our government. Our lives depend on this. Let's stay tuned in. And I completely agree with that. And I think our sleepiness as citizenry has cost us a lot in terms of our democracy, and our economy. What I want to bring forth is a very important self-care principle, which is you want to tune in mindful of your capacity. And when I say capacity, I mean your emotional capacity, your physical capacity, and your mental capacity. And there's so much research now. If I'm watching someone on TV and my blood is starting to boil, I actually lose connection with my neocortex. I can't do anything helpful anymore anyway. I'm actually out of the game. So it's better to really monitor our capacities and then pick our battles, right? Expend these capacities where we've got the best chance to make a difference. And when it goes to, and to your point of our political leader who may not be well, and I believe there were many psychologists that came out in 2016 and talked about that, gave their professional opinions that somehow didn't make it very high up in the media list. But what there's definitely in peacemaking protective use of force, for example. There's different things that happen, and that would be like people starting lawsuits and so forth to try to, make a difference on this, to try to limit the power that's being used in a way that from my opinion, is irresponsible to the well-being of this country and the citizenry in many ways. And now a lot of people could point to other political leaders and say, yeah, but look over there and look over there, right? So there's that piece. And then in terms of him personally, not wanting empathy, my guess is that, and I totally believe that power is very high on the agenda there, very high. And I believe that there's not a lot of capacity for empathy there that I've seen. And yet, I also believe that empathy is healing to receive for all of us, for any human being, no matter how monstrous we've been. And there's a trauma expert respected globally, Gabor Mate, and he says that the harm that comes from trauma is not as much about what has happened as it is about not being accompanied emotionally, being isolated in the experience. And most of us were not raised by people, either in the institutions we attended or in our families or in our workplaces, who have the skill to accompany us emotionally. Emotions that have been squashed. They mean we're weak, we're bad, we're at least inconvenient to be around if we have emotions, right? But the healing to any human being, I think of it as kind of like a mirror and a hand. If I'm accompanying someone emotionally, I'm reflecting back what I'm getting of their story, of their world. And I'm taking their hand, I'm just walking with them. I'm not advising them, I'm not fixing them, I'm just walking with them. Anything else about, like, because I know I kind of went all around your comment and question. Did anything land for you?
Worldview that somebody who's, what is he, 79 now, he's not going to change. He's not going to change. All we can do is protect ourselves from this guy.
Yes, protective use of force, lawsuits, whatever needs to happen. I so agree that sometimes we get to that place.
Mhm.
And by some miracle, if someone had the capacity to offer him empathy, they'd probably, even in his psyche, probably notice something little shift, my guess.
Well,
My
as
guess-
someone, Patricia and I are looking out and we see a very big gold tower with a big name on it as a reminder. But I have to say this about you. Your voice is so soothing. It doesn't even matter what you say. You feel better listening to you. And I think you are very blessed with, and I don't know if that's coming from within or just your vocal apparatus, but you have the capacity, I think, to lower the temp for a lot of people when they are in judgment. And it wouldn't surprise me if I say, I love judging people. In fact, I even judged a speech contest for kids.
Yeah. Well, and our judgment, watch the judgment show, right? There's actually some real energy in it. and wisdom. But yes, thank you, Susan Rowan. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Gordon Hill put his hand up.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, I didn't see.
I did. A quotation from my distant past. Sir Alfred North Whitehead said that the sole purpose of reading is to force the mind to do its own thinking. That applies to listening as well. I have done two things during your program. First, this is my first experience with your views, and I followed you on LinkedIn. Secondly,
Thank you.
Carl Jung triggered me. I didn't know him personally and only read about him later, but at one point in his life, he said, what myths, what mythologies am I living by? And I believe that your program strikes at the core of that. What mythologies are we living by? How do we see ourselves and how do we see others? The English have an interesting view in Parliament. The Prime Minister is the first among equals, that all members of Parliament. And I've adopted that for my life in that I'm the Prime Minister of my life, and all 8 billion people on the planet are my equals. Not all of them are active participants in my Parliament, but they all could be if they wanted to. So thank you very much for today's program. My heart melts.
You are so welcome, Gordon, and thank you for bringing that out. I'm like first among equals, and that first is about the self-care and caring for capacity, and the equals part. Yes, the core of NVC consciousness is my needs and your needs matter equally. Now we're human beings. You're going to definitely lean towards like really trying to get yours met, and I'm going to lean towards really trying to get mine met. That's still going to always be going on. And yet the more that you and I are capable of going, yes, but let's make sure both people's needs are really well met in this negotiation and this agreement moving forward. Yeah, it's key to actually peace on earth from my perspective. Thanks.
Well, it's very difficult in this bifurcated world where, particularly in American culture, where there are two types of people. There's the winners and there's the losers, right?
Yes.
And very, very difficult to find that
Yes. And
meeting place.
thank you for bringing that up, Carl. And that's partly, I mentioned briefly, the conscious business or conscious capitalism movement. That's at the core of their consciousness. It's like, let's do the win-win thing or win-win-win. So that's like the whole community winning. And then the crazy thing is he has beautiful data in the appendice, and then there's been more written since, that these companies over time are more sustainable and more profitable. This is like super exciting news for all of us because business and corporations pretty much run our planet. I mean, right? Like in a big way. And so as they start to figure this out, wow, caring about people, planet brings me profit. What? And suppliers, not trying to squeeze every last nickel out of my suppliers, but instead holding them as part of my community, wanting them to thrive, wanting them to be here serving me 20 years from now. It's a really different mind and heart set. Yeah, Patricia, did you have a question?
Well, of course, thank you for your wonderful program. I agree. I wish I had a voice could be as calm and soothing. However, I do perhaps my energy. I want people to take action. It was a very thoughtful program. And one question to close your program. From your experience, is this more difficult in personal relationships or business relations?
Such a good question. I would say it really depends on the people, the skill level, and like what they're up against. I would say in working with people in their personal lives, it goes deeper, like emotionally, it goes and I would say even the discovery of like the traumas involved in their tragic strategies. By the way, Rosenberg had a 4-word definition of human conflict: unmet needs, tragically expressed. And that's what they're up against. In business, when we work in business, like the feelings inventory, for example, it's more simplified. It kind of goes a little more shallow in a sense, but the meaning and the depth is still there in terms of getting to the heart of the matter, which is meeting needs. But some people in their business lives, I've also seen though, they are just as torn up. I worked with two teachers, 17-year friendship and amazing career together in a school, crying every day on the way to work as they drove because of what it felt like now to be together. And because what it felt like in their divisions with how they were kind of, in some cases, using the administrative power, some administrative power to drive an agenda. So yeah, it's it in both work and home. It takes making that choice. It takes all of us, and I, it takes all of who we are to show up like this and make the choice. But the good news is that what I've seen is over time, the good news is that you'll get some immediate golden moments when you apply this consciously, and that keeps you rolling forward. Because it is hard to wire things that have been ways of thinking and speaking that we've been doing for years and years. So it's challenging, but it's golden, and it has this beautiful positive feedback loop that keeps us on the path. And I wanted to mention, if you get Heart Talk, if you go to my website and get Heart Talk, you will find you'll find that there's a place on it that give you the 4 Ds of disconnection and the 4 Rs of reconnection. And that is like a really good summary of what we are rewiring. Yeah.
Any more questions for Catherine?
I have one. Where does which I always learned, where does the using I messages versus you messages come in?
Oh gosh, I love that. It comes in all over the place, and it's what keeps us safe and in our lane. So if you notice, and on Heart Talk, you'll have, like, when I am giving my honesty, that my honesty NVC is used for empathy and honesty. Like, primarily that's what we're doing, right? I'm trying to get your world, which is me giving you empathy and making some guesses, and I'm trying to have you understand my world, my feelings and needs, right? When I keep it over here, when I say, I feel because I need, that does not entangle you in any way. It limits the chance of you to start either punching back at me or making yourself wrong, which then might have you punch back at me, because that's what people do. When I say, like, back to that example of my work, my coworker is inconsiderate. If I say that, rather than when I saw you do such and such, I felt concerned because I really want more mutuality in how we work. That's all over here with me. I did say that I saw her do something. That's as far into her lane as I go, is my observations. But my observation is cleaned up from my judgment or my evaluation. I see NVC, and it's simple 4 steps. It's a kind of, like engineers and like in biotech and everything, they have like clean rooms, right? There's not a speck of dust. NVC creates a kind of a clean room for us to operate in. And so the judgments are still going on because I still have a human brain, but they're not escaping from here. What's coming out from here is the vulnerability of how I feel and what I need. And of course, back to that workplace conversation, showing the vulnerability in the workplace is getting more popular. Thank you, Brene Brown. But there's still more risk. There's still risk there. And I would say go slow in the risk, go slowly as you take those risks, but practice makes those risks very tenable. Being vulnerable. because people do respond, and people get it. And I think there was another hand. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, Janice had her hand up, but had to go to a meeting as I do. So
Okay.
Carl Walsh, thank you for being our wonderful meeting manager. Thank you, Catherine, for a wonderful presentation. Thank you for attending, dear friends. And we'll see you for a Zoom meeting in 2 weeks. And those of us in San Francisco and surrounding areas can meet us at the Marines Memorial. No doubt Craig will be asking for RSVPs. Derek Arden, I'll talk to you Sunday. And goodbye, dear friends. Thank you for
everybody.
your birthday song.
Happy
Now,
birthday, happy
Roanne
birthday.
and I, in an hour, will go out and celebrate on your behalf.
Yes.
Right, thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Thank you,
Thanks, Carl.
Catherine.
Great to see you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.